is that they immediately built colleges and universities. People who were legally barred from reading and writing a few short years before, in a community that was largely illiterate, understood the need to establish institutions. President Ruth Jason.
Thank you so much for that. God have mercy.
Thank you, Melody. You know, I really think that one can praise Cornel West too much. That was beautiful.
That was beautiful.
So I was sitting there thinking, I don't know, do I dare get up and introduce Cornel after that? Because I had some kind of nice things to say about it. But Cornel, I'm going to go ahead and do it. Good afternoon, everybody. Dazzling, scholarly, prophetic, the preeminent African-American intellectual of our time, impassioned and insightful to describe how he has influenced the realms that his interventions have touched upon. But despite these many ways of describing him, I most appreciate the fact that his primary identity is not denied him, as it so often is for African American scholars who have made outstanding contributions to their fields. For however far the references range, they all begin and end with Cornel West, the philosopher.
In all honesty and all full disclosure, that the first phone call I received from Ruth Simmons was an offer to come to Princeton 32 years ago in 1987, and 5 minutes later I got a call from the one and only, the inimitable Toni Morrison, and she said, Ruth said we ought to come and form an intellectual neighborhood at Princeton. And that's exactly what happened. And now 32 years later, we still going. And Ruth just looks so magnificent, sharp, and brilliant. Lord, no, this is part of the subject matter now. Oh, yes, this is part of the subject matter. But I want to salute Professor Price, coming from New Jersey, right down the road at Rutgers, writing magnificent books on black nationalism, and our dear brother Barack Obama, magnificent as he is. Yes, he needs to be Socratized and criticized like everybody else. Give it up for the new professor, Professor Price, Marilyn Price. Sitting next to Brother James, we're in graduate school together at Princeton. I can go on and on and on. There's a very special brother here. His name is William Henry Pruitt the first. The third is his grandson. His grandson is my head teaching fellow at Harvard, beginning last semester our course on Du Bois, this semester my course in Introduction to Afro-American Studies. Where is William, or Willie we should say, a.k.a. Buster Pruitt Sr.? Where is he? Just wave, wave. Where are you, my brother? There he is right over in the left. There he is in the left, there he is. Somebody stand up right next to him so everybody can get an idea where he is. There he is. Oh, yes. Mel Ruth Crothers. The coming together of those Crothers and the Pruitts shaping so much of the rich history of this august institution. And why do I begin? By pointing out such towering forces for good. It is because I want to begin exactly where I begin every presentation. I want to acknowledge Dr. Keith Jemison, who was the head chief when he was there waiting for me when I got off the plane, and Michael Curry. Why do I begin with such revolutionary piety? And what is piety? Piety is not uncritical deference to dogma. Piety is an acknowledgement of the forces of good in your life that has helped you make you the best that you are, those who came before and those who are alive that are able to affirm, acknowledge, and empower you. Why? Because I know that all the talk about Harvard and Yale and Princeton, and University of Paris, and so forth. For me, that's just sounding brass and tinkling cymbals. I am who I am because somebody loved me. Somebody cared for me. Somebody targeted me. And the highest honor I'll ever have in my life is being the second son of Clifton West and Irene West. He passed in 1994. I will never be half the man he was. I've always tried to be a Jesus-loving, free black man. And that's what he was. And he sets the standard. And then Mom is still going, 87 years young. There's an elementary school named after her, Irene B. West, in Sacramento, California. She grew up in Orange, Texas, right down the way. She used to come here to Prairie View every summer in a hall called Lucky Hall. Anybody here remember Lucky Hall? You remember Lucky Hall? Just wave your hand. Yeah, there was a little beautiful girl coming down there from Jim Crow, Texas every summer in the homemaking conference that would, lo and behold, become part of this history and then give birth to a little Negro named Cornel West. And I came out with a smile swinging. And I say that especially to the young brothers and sisters of all colors, but disproportionately chocolate. I want you to know that you come from a great people, a people who have been terrorized for 400 years and taught the world so much about freedom. Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman, Nat Turner, Ida B. Wells Barnett, A. Philip Randolph. 400 years being stigmatized and taught the world so much about how to heal, remain fortified, and keep it on, in the language of a genius from the west side of Chicago named Curtis Mayfield. That's a lie. When you can't have public policy that reflects it. That's true all around the world. The baby in Ethiopia, the baby in Guatemala, the baby in Tel Aviv, the baby in Gaza, they all have the same value. We used to sing a song in Vacation Bible School, say, Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world, red and yellow, black or white. They are precious. That's not just some cliche. We got to learn how to live it, which means you have to speak your mind. When I was the age of young folk, the undergrads and graduate students, I met a wonderful brother graduating May the 11th in education. Wave your hand, brother, wave your hand. There he is. You're going to graduate May the 11th. We'll be there in spirit. Oh, yes, another soldier. When you get that diploma, one of the questions you got to raise is, did you learn how to die while you were here in order to learn how to live? You see, James Baldwin never went to college, but a college went through him. It's a crucial point. When you graduate from Prairie View A&M University, you matriculated, but did you allow the best of Prairie View to go through you? So you get self-critical, courageous. We don't need cowards. We don't need sunshine soldiers. We need all-season love warriors. That has what has kept this institution going. I just had a wonderful conversation with my dear brother from the newspaper. And I was talking about a brother named Matthew Gaines. You all know Matthew Gaines. Oh, he was a giant. He was born in the same town my father was, in Alexander, Louisiana. Born a slave, they hunted him down. He went all the way to Mexico, and they snatched him and still brought him back. Then he fought for the Union Army, came back and said, I'm going to run for the Texas Senate. He becomes a senator in the Texas legislation, and he says, I have a vision. There ought to be a university in Prairie View for young black people to keep alive a legacy of struggle for truth and justice. And they booted old brother Matthew out of the legislature, didn't they? But look at what is wrought with William Howland and the others in 1876. Keep in mind the greatness of a Matthew Keynes and a William Holland all the way up to Ruth Simmons. That's part of the history that sets the standard. We're not looking for mainstream standards. We're looking for standards that we ourselves created in the midst of overwhelming adverse circumstances. And that's not chauvinistic or tribalistic. It's simply to follow the great legacy of W.B. Du Bois when he talked about the souls of black folk and the gift of black folk and the 4 questions he said that every generation has to come to terms with. And I'm going to end with these questions very quickly. Du Bois, imagine Du Bois in February 11th, 1951. He's 83 years old. He is the greatest public intellectual in the history of this nation, not just black people. He's in handcuffs. They're trying to send him to jail for life because of his commitment to black people and poor people and working people all around the world. 3 days later is Valentine's Day, and he gets married for the 2nd time with a revolutionary sister named Shirley Graham, who I was blessed to study with at Harvard. And what does Du Bois say? He said, I got to write a love letter to the younger generation. And he writes a trilogy called the Black Flame Trilogy. How do you keep alive this fire? And the first book is called The Ordeal of Mansart, M-A-N-S-A-R-T, The Ordeal of Mansart. You turn to page 275 in that novel. He said, there's 4 questions I've been wrestling with all of my life. And I want young people to, in order to keep the fire, the quest for truth and justice and beauty alive. The first question is, how shall integrity face oppression? Integrity. He didn't say get over by any means. He didn't say obsessed with your own individual project. Integrity is something that cuts much deeper than any individual project. It has to do with the quality of person that you are. How much courage you really have. How much wisdom do you really have? Self-hatred, psychic death. On the way to the crack house, spiritual death. On the way to the bottle, sexual addiction. Addiction to success, that's still a form of spiritual death. But in learning how to die, what does that mean? That means that you are critically examining yourself in such a way that you have certain assumptions you must give up because it's disempowering to you, it's paralyzing to you. If there's self-disrespect, you've got to learn how to give it up. If you're denigrating yourself, if you don't believe in yourself, if you're doubting yourself in such a way that you think you can achieve, very much like the teacher at Wellesley that Sister Ruth talks about. They're all different, but they're all still trying to do what? Touch our soul. They soul stirrers like Johnny Taylor and Lou Rawls and Sam Cooke and R.H. Harris. Soul stirrers, not body stimulators. They trying to create a sonic song in such a way that it goes hand in hand with a freedom movement to free your body, to free your mind and self in such a way you can straighten up and say, yes, I'm going to be a medical doctor. I'm going to be a pharmacist. I'm going to be a lawyer. The ways in which these particular elements have been lost or we're slowly losing it.
So far from your family that you cannot see the wisdom of what your family has done for you. Talk a little bit about your mother and father and your siblings and sort of what you got from that.
No, I appreciate you again asking that question because I'm just trying to be just as honest as I can in terms of who I am. And my brother Clifton, who was 3 years older than I am, and he's still strong as he can be. He just had a major heart attack and really died and came back. Wow. He's strong as ever. He's one of the greatest track and field athletes in the history of history track and field. With UC Berkeley still holds the mile record freshman. I was going to be a great athlete and just got deterred a little bit. But
that happens.
I know. It's just, but I tell you, my father used to take me to Candlestick in San Francisco, and I met one of the greatest athletes of the 20th century, Willie Mays, and spent time with him. Willie Mays had a level of humility that is hard to describe.
Right.
He was a jazz musician on the baseball field. He had a style. We just lost Willie McCovey, his good friend. Willie McCovey was kind to us. who played first base. So that I just happened to show up at a time where I had all this love and I experienced spiritual greatness right in my crib. Then with Shiloh Baptist, in those days, you see, the family and the church was so tied together. And Deacon Hinton, he didn't have any kids, but he used to take us all to take those different places. Now, you see, I got kicked out of school in 8th grade, in 8 years old in the 3rd grade because I didn't refuse to salute the flag. Because I had a great uncle who had been lynched in a military uniform. They wrapped the flag around him. So I told my teacher, I'm not saluting no flag that mess with my great uncle like that. I said, what you talking about? Then she hit me, and I went Joe Frazier on it. Now, that wasn't right. That wasn't right. That wasn't right. I've done some things that's just not right. But so that the whole community came in, and I couldn't find a place to go to school for 2.5 months. Right. Then they put me in another school in special education because they figured I had extra energy. I said, well, that's a compliment, but I need another context too.
So here's what's interesting about that to me.
So all that love coming at me.
One of the things that we know is that churches, especially traditional denominations,
yes,
are desperate for people.
It's true.
Desperate. Churches, I live in Philadelphia now, and churches are closing every day. 130 years old, 120 years old, 150 years old. And so if churches are not the place where people are getting what you got, what are the places in the contemporary where they can go to get some of that kind of socialization?
Oh, that's a powerful question. It's a powerful question. Because traditionally, we black folk, we've had our families, we've had our faith, we've had our music, and then we had our relationships, connections. So our music been dumbed down. The churches themselves have been so commodified that it's hard to find a courageous, visionary pastor who puts a primacy on prison fund, the elderly. I'm trying to think of the things Reverend Cook did. That's just hard to find. Now, we've still got some magnificent spokespersons, but they have become so marketized that young people just figure, well, the church is just another business. See? And we got our own businesses. We got our own gang activity. And they look at preachers sometimes and just see another gangster. Say, oh, he got a Bentley, they got a Bentley. Oh, I see. This is interesting. Well, he got one in the name of Jesus. What kind of Jesus they talking about? He got one in the name of money. Oh, they're very consistent. So, and this is not all churches. Don't get me wrong. We got some magnificent churches out there. I know that. But, oh, we got some other churches.
Right.
Oh, so where else do we go? Institutions of higher learning. A lot of love still in institutions of higher learning. But the challenges are difficult there. Challenges are difficult there because it's just not a question of the institution. It's the people who inhabit the institution.
Right.
It's the people who inhabit the institution. You got to have people like you do here who fundamentally care about the student. Wherever they are, you got potential, you got possibility. I can see you down the road if you're disciplined enough to defer gratification and pursue something serious.